My name is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone. I run Spainguru.es, and this is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa webinar. And today is March 18th, 2026. We're going to go through a presentation and then a Q&A session. A little bit about Spainguru.es, 10 years plus helping expats move to Spain, 150,000 community across Facebook groups, big Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group, 21,000 members, very active. Weekly newsletter, read by 18,000 readers and more than 1,000 videos, 9,000 subscribers on YouTube channel. All these are free that you can join today and opt out anytime. Weekly immigration webinars like this one, not only this one, also no lucrative visa, moving to Spain, Spanish taxes, also webinars with experts, all free. And you get the recordings. And as I mentioned, the DNV group, you can see right now we're at 220 reviews on Trustpilot, 99% of them 5 stars and 2 of them 4 stars. So almost 300 reviews together with Google Business Reviews, almost 5 stars. So you're in pretty good hands. Today, one of my partners, CABR Relocation, told me that was going to offer a free eligibility for the Digital Nomad Visa consultation of 10 minutes, and you can book it today. You can see there on the top. You have a button, and if you click it, it will bring you to their calendar, and it is free. And in 10 minutes, you go there with your questions, and you can get a lot of answers. And that is Sofia in the here, and you can see that I have videos with her about the Digital Nomad Visa. They've been processing this visa since the start, so they're experts in this visa, and they know everything that is going on. So definitely worth contacting with them and see how they can help you, okay? And also the link will be in the description of the video if you're watching this on YouTube and in the pinned comment. So yes, this is a free resource that hopefully will get you closer to coming to Spain. Now let's talk about the objectives of this webinar today. You'll learn today about how to qualify under the 2026 rules, the documents you really need, how to apply from Spain or from a consulate, how taxes work. Of course, we're not going to go in depth into that. For that, I had the taxes webinar, how renewals work, okay, and also the most common mistakes and pitfalls. The content of this webinar is for information purposes only and is not legal advice. The requirements listed here are not official. Please check your specific consulates and UGE's requirements. So we're going to talk about terminology, requirements, employee versus freelancers, income documents, and applying from Spain versus consulate, renewal and compliance, right? Let's start with key terms that you need to understand. UGE is the government unit that evaluates your DNV. So when you come to Spain, you apply online at the UGE portal. The NIE number is your foreigner identification number. It's just the number. Then there is the TIE card, which is the plastic card that you obtain once you go to a national police station or foreign office to put your fingerprints with your approved visa, with an empadronamiento in most cases, and you get the plastic card where it is written what type of visa and whether you are allowed to work or not. Then autónomo. Autónomo is the self-employed freelancer contractor legal status in Spain, right? So you register as autónomo at the Social Security and tax authorities. Then there is the A1 or certificate of coverage, COC, we're going to mention, right? So if you move to Spain as an employee under the Digital Nomad Visa, you have to submit a certificate of coverage from the Social Security of the home country. And in case you're coming from a European country, that certificate of coverage is called A1. So typically for British, which is no longer, let's say, a European Union country, but of course in Europe and was in the European Union, still they call it A1. Let's talk about applying from Spain versus a consulate, right? So important thing, if you're going to apply from a consulate, you must obtain the NIE number first. And that, depending on the consulate, can take months, okay? Especially, for example, someone is connecting from Manila in Philippines. Typically, in Manila, it takes time. So it's good to be part of a group, of a Facebook group, because you can ask about the consulate's timeframes, and also have a big group for Filipinos in Facebook. So if you go actually to Spainguru and you click on here in the community tab, it will bring you to all my communities, and the Filipino community It is a big group of more than 1,000 members, and it's all about NLV, DNB, etc., right? So check the time frames, okay? And once you obtain it from abroad, maximum you can obtain a residence permit of 1 year, okay? Whereas from Spain, you can receive up to 3 years permits if you comply with the conditions, right? Now, if you apply from Spain, another perk is that the NIE is issued with the DNB approval automatically en passant, okay? So you don't need to do that extra previous step, okay? And also, a good thing, if you apply from Spain, if after 20 working days you don't have an answer from UGE, a positive administrative silence applies, and that means you are approved. Let's talk about the update for 2026. So I'm going to take off this so we can read, and we're going to talk about the COC, specifically the United States COC. In late 2025, there's been a few rejections, many of them, from employees moving to Spain, submitting COC from the States. But now it seems to have been accepted again. Okay, so what happened is that the law and the regulations didn't change, but it did change the interpretation from UGE. Okay, and in order to observe or to meet the standards or requirements from the law and regulation, you need, if you're going to apply with the COC from the US, have correct wording. Okay, so you must show posted worker structure. You know, your company needs to formally say that. And the COC must align with your job contract. Okay, so I have an article about this if you want to know more, but basically the COC is accepted again, but you have to be very careful how you word its submission. Okay, and you have to understand that there's more scrutiny later on because of many different reasons, and one of them is the change of interpretation of our rules, and also some fraud cases that we're going to talk about later on. Okay, now more documents now require also apostilles compared to 2024, 2025, especially company certificates. There are stricter checks for business owners to prove real company activity. Professional experience must be backed now by official evidence. Okay, that is important. So as we said, the UGE is now much stricter. Okay, and from lawyers who attended recent conferences from the UGE director, okay, now it seems they have created more specialized review teams, so more scrutiny, stronger documentation checks, reinforced quality control units. Also, they will look at post-approval compliance checks. So they will check whether you register as autonomo, for example, if you're applying as a freelancer, they will check if you did that. And if you're paying taxes for renewals, etc. Okay, and increase fraud detection. Let's talk about apostilles and legalization. Okay, more updates. So before, only a few documents needed apostille. I'm talking about 2024 until mid 2025. Now, what's different is that company registration certificates must be apostilled. Tax or social security reports used as work proof require apostille. If you're applying with your spouse, if you're applying with your children or unmarried partners, you'll need to get new copies of marriage certificate or birth certificate or civil partnership certificates. Always, you only need those documents if you're applying with spouses and children. No, if you're applying by yourself, you don't need, of course, to submit those, right? But they need apostilles. They always need it, okay, even from before, and also sworn translations as well for every official document that is not in Spanish, right? So remember also that in most cases, the translations must be sworn translations, okay? That is, they must be done by a specific type of translator that is appointed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Spain, who have a unique registration number, okay? And they can provide official translations, right, that are recognized as official by Spanish institutions, okay? We're gonna look at a chart or a table that tells you which documents need to be translated via sworn translation versus normal translation, let's say, or ordinary translations. So, as we said, now the UGE has strengthened its quality control unit. And why they did this? Because they found cases of fake work contracts, non-existent companies, agents reusing documentation across clients, improper social security registrations as well. And it could happen that even if your case is fine, let's say, or you're using right documentation, if an agent or a lawyer has used fraudulent documentation, the whole batch could be reviewed, okay, from all that agent, right? So you have, this is something that has happened, okay, and applications can be canceled because of this reason. And as we said, post-approval checks may trigger revocation. So even if you obtained the digital nomad visa, it was granted, but then you fail to comply with whatever you promised, like register as autónomo, etc., then it could be revoked. This is also something new. Let's talk also about taxes. It was sold also at the beginning of this visa that all digital nomads were going to enjoy being part of the Beckham law or special tax regime that has many perks. And the most famous is a 24% flat rate, okay, that applies to employment income, and you don't pay taxes on income outside of Spain. You don't have to file the overseas assets form 720. You don't pay wealth tax and many more things. Okay, but unfortunately, under the digital nomad visa rules, in most cases, 99.99% of cases, eligible for this special tax regime are only employees and not freelancers, okay, or 1099s or autonomous, okay? Now, it's important to know that tax advisors say that if you make less than 60,000 euros of taxable income per year, it may be better off to be under the ordinary regime because of different reasons, okay? And also, eligibility for employees is mostly directed at people working for a company that they do not own. That's also another important one, okay? Now, most applicants, therefore, will pay standard progressive income tax rates under the general tax regime, okay? For ordinary income, 19 to 47% progressive tax brackets, or for savings income, 19% to 30%, like capital gains tax, okay? And, of course, you would pay taxes on your global income and potentially on the net value of your assets when you become a Spanish tax resident. If self-employed, you also pay social security contributions on a monthly basis, okay? So this is the situation, and most people are aware now about this, but we have to always mention it because we still see people who think that they're going to get a special tax treatment just by applying for a digital nomad visa, regardless of their status. Now, another thing to expect about UGE not only is increased scrutiny because of what has been happening in terms of fraud, etc., but also that their decisions haven't been always consistent, okay? Interpretations have been varying all the time, even between different case workers, okay? Rejections happened even with strong applications, and a typical thing that you will hear, instead of appealing that decision, the best is to reapply. If you're applying from Spain, make sure to apply as soon as you enter the country, because if you get a denial, then you still have days left of your Schengen days, 90 days in 180 days rolling period, where you can reapply. And sometimes people have reapplied without changing a single comma in their applications, and they got an approval, right? So as you can see, there's some, let's say, randomness also in this. I'm not just saying that it's pure randomness, but it does, we've seen some cases where it seemed like the different case workers or people reviewing the case had different decisions from the same filing, okay? Now, also another thing that people report is like decisions around holidays, that is August, end of July, August, and Christmas, yes, may be stricter or rushed because they're understaffed, okay? So this is also something that people recommend, not applying close to those times. Now, let's go to the official requirements, and let's talk about the eligibility criteria for digital nomad visa. So the first one, earn at least 2,850 euros per month. This financial threshold is calculated as 200% of the Spanish minimum salary, which we had heard news that it was going to be approved by the Consejo de Ministros, okay, the ministers, on February 2026, and it was going to apply retroactively from the beginning of the year. And therefore, that has an impact into the financial threshold for this visa, right? Another requirement is that you work remotely for a non-Spanish company or clients. Maximum 20% of their income may come from Spanish clients, okay, but it can be zero. Have either a university degree or at least 3 years of relevant professional experience. Provide a clean criminal record for the past 5 years, wherever you lived. Prove your employer or clients have existed for at least 1 year. Confirm your work is performed remotely using digital tools, so not all kinds of jobs would apply for this visa, okay? And since December 2025, if you are applying as an autonomo or, let's say, contractor, you have to show proof of self-employment registration in the country of origin for self-employed applicants, regardless of whether you apply from a consulate or from within Spain. So extra control about that. People are forgetting this one. Now, if you look at the financial thresholds, as we said, 2,849 euros per month for the main applicant. For the couple, it is 75%. So you just add that, and if you're applying as a couple, it's almost 4,000 euros. Family of 3, little over 4,000 euros, and family of 4, over 4,500 euros per month. So the more you apply, the higher goes the financial threshold. So yes, as this is based in the minimum salary, the new minimum salary in Spain is going to be 1,221 euros per month, but you need to calculate it in 14 payments to arrive to the annual threshold. Okay, and therefore that's how you arrive to that amount of 2,850 euros per month, minimum financial threshold. So these figures are gross. Okay, so before taxes and expenses, right? So basically, yes, basically gross figures. And if you're self-employed, income must be shown before deducting the costs, okay, or paying any taxes. Right? Now, people ask, savings, can you use savings? Yes, they may help support your case, but in no case can replace consistent active income. And there's no rule, there's no law, anyone suggests, there's nowhere formal where it states how much percentage or how much amount per month you can use as savings. But if you look at the community, the different professionals say maximum 200 euros per month, to 450 euros per month, we've seen. And authorities tend to be more flexible when you're applying with a family, to increase, let's say, the ratio or the absolute value of this. But as I said, there is no rule or law that determines this, okay? And how you document the income through contracts, payslips, invoices, and bank statements, okay? We mentioned maximum 20% of your income can come from Spain. Now, dependent, for example, your spouse has full rights and can work for Spanish companies. 100% of the income can come from Spain. This is a funny thing. Like the dependent has more work rights than the main applicant. Funny enough. Now, let's talk about the application checklist. What you need to submit. Well, you'll need a signed letter from your employer or main client confirming your role, job title, job description, your pay in euros via exchange of Banco de España. Okay, you search currency conversion Banco de España and it gives you the official exchange. Remote work authorization from Spain and confirmation the arrangement is long-term. Now, your contract, ideally without a fixed end date. Why? Because if you show this type of contract and you're applying from Spain, they will give you the maximum, which is 3 years residency, to renew 2 more years, and that opens the door for a long-term residency after 5 years if you comply with the requirements and minimum stay requirements. The last 3 months of stamp and or signed personal bank statements showing income, last 3 months of payslips or invoices, company certificate with Apostilles, we said that, proving your employer or client has existed for at least 1 year, proof of qualification or 3+ years of relevant experience, criminal background check, and signed declaration. Okay, this is a declaration where you said that from the moment in which you got your background check and the submission of the documents, you didn't commit any crimes. Private health insurance in some cases, okay? For the digital nomad visa, least cases, okay? If you apply for autonomo, no health insurance needed, okay? Because you get the public healthcare access, right? And only if you're applying as an employee in most cases, but not all of them. Passport application form, payment, receipt, and photo. Each document must be sworn, translated, and apostille legalized if required, okay? So we mentioned apostille. The apostille is a system that is a convention of, I think, 160 countries in the world, out of 200 countries. So not all of them are part of this convention, For example, United Emirates is not part of the Hague Convention, so they don't have apostles. In that case, you need to do it at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs instead of showing an apostle. But UK, US, now Canada, after 2 years, Australia, they have apostles. Now, if you're applying as an employee, W2, and together with an A1 certificate, or COC, right, your employer must confirm your remote status and your job duties. A W2 form can support your income, but it's not enough by itself. You'll need the certificate of coverage to prove you're paying Social Security in your home country. And without that, Spain will require your employer either to register the company in Spain and pay Spanish Social Security in the payroll, or you need to become an autonomo, switch to autonomo, right? And as we said, optional and helpful, a signed letter confirming no impact on Spain labor market. This is what some experts suggest. Now, there are some people who have the versatility of the possibility to either apply as an employee or apply as a self-employed. So both situations have advantages and disadvantages. Here's a table that compares both situations, and you can watch this later on. It's very long, very complex. You can watch this later on YouTube. And if you're liking the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you have questions, please comment below. So more about certificate of coverage. US, UK, Canada, and other countries. We said that the COC of the USA now is accepted with specific wording. You need to be very careful. The COC of Canada is being accepted. The UK, European Union countries are being accepted. I heard Russia, Brazil as well are being accepted. And yeah, those ones are the ones that are come to my mind. This can change anytime, of course. Now, the certificate of coverage must cover the full duration of your initial visa. Like, for example, normally the A1 in the UK, they give it to you for maximum 2 years. Sometimes we've seen cases of people who got the visa for 3 years, and they said, wow, perfect, I got the visa for 3 years. I don't need the coverage in the last year. That's not true. You should consider your visa, your residency finished if you don't have certificate of coverage, valid certificate of coverage. Okay, so be careful with that. If it expires, you may have to register as self-employed in Spain. Okay, that's a pathway. And you have to do it before it expires, so you have continuous residency and you don't lose that time as a resident in Spain that can help you obtain the long-term residency. And of course, make sure it's apostille and translated if needed. Okay, be careful with the time frames. Obtaining this type of certificates usually takes weeks. Okay, from 4 weeks to 2 months. So you need to calculate accordingly. Let's talk about employers paying Social Security in Spain. Is that a viable option? Well, the truth is that it is a complex and costly process, so most prefer remote contractors or consultants rather than direct Spanish payroll compliance. Okay, so it's not very common that happens unless they already have a company operating in Spain, and sometimes there is another visa called intra-company transfer that could also be a viable pathway instead of the digital nomad visa. Some applicants switch to self-employed status to avoid this requirement entirely, as we mentioned. Now, if you do so, if you go self-employed, what are the timings and what do you need to do? And it will depend whether you're applying from a consulate versus from Spain. Okay. So as we said, if you're not covered by a COC, a common pathway could be becoming self-employed in Spain. You would register as autonomo in Spain. That means you will pay Spain's Social Security. You will file not only your annual tax filings, but also you will also file on a quarterly basis, okay, your income filings and potentially VAT, okay, if you have Spanish customers, right? Now, don't register until you've entered Spain and your visa is approved, okay? This refers to Spanish autonomous registration, okay? Proof of self-employment registration in your country of origin is still required before applying since December 2025. You will have 30 days to complete the process after arrival. If you arrive with a digital nomad visa, okay, approved from your consulate, up to 30 days to become an autonomo, to register as autonomo, okay? The law says register as autonomo as soon as possible. Same happens if you obtain the visa from Spain. As soon as you get your visa approved, you need to go and register as autonomo, okay? We mentioned the payments to Social Security on a monthly basis. They normally start at 80, 90 euros. Depending on the region, you may get the first year paid back. It's called quota cero, okay? So the first 1,000 euros that you pay, if you're requested in Madrid, for example, Andalusia, and I heard Barcelona as well, you get, well, Barcelona, Catalonia, you can get that money back if you claim it, of course. And then they will raise the contribution depending on your income, okay? And after you start to file income, okay, they have that official information. And if you didn't pay Social Security in the level that you had to pay, they will send you a letter telling you the good news that you owe money. That's how it works. Or at least that doesn't happen that often. They have to give you money back because you pay too much, right? Another thing that many people don't account for in their budgeting is accounting fees. This is very important. Like, I'm not from Spain, I'm from Argentina, but I've been living here 21 years, and I set up companies. I work as, in startups. I have many years of entrepreneurial experience, and still, I tell you, I'm not gonna file my own taxes. I speak Spanish, know more or less what's going on, but it's impossible to keep up to date. It is a very complex system. The errors in Spain are paid dearly, so always get a gestor or accountant in order to file your taxes at the very least. Okay, so you need to account for that cost, in my humble opinion, especially if you just arrived to this country and you don't speak the language, you don't know how things work. And then, at least for the setup, at the very least for the setup, to sign the right boxes, and then once everything rolling, potentially you could explore doing it yourself. How and when to register again? This is a big question one. Do I need a physical TIE card to register as autónomo, or can I register directly after the DNV approval? Very important. You don't need your TIE card as autónomo, and in fact, it will take you weeks, if not months, depending where you are applying for the TIE card, to get it. So you still need to comply with the requirement of registering as autónomo as soon as possible, right? So therefore, by logic, you don't need a TIE card in order to register as autónomo, and you would be in a trouble, and potentially your permit could be revoked, especially after now the UGE became stricter. Many gestores or tax accountants aren't aware of this, okay? And they will tell you, no, you first get the TIA and then we register you as autónomo. That person, unfortunately, is not used to work with digital nomads, okay? So, of course, you can go on Spainguru.es, you will find my recommended gestores, okay, who are very used to work with digital nomads. They're all online, they all speak English, etc., and they are very affordable, and they know what they're doing, right? So that's important as well to notice. Can a criminal record affect your application? The answer is yes. Okay. First of all, you need to submit a criminal record for the past 5 years. Even minor offenses can trigger delays or rejections. Spain will generally look for serious criminal convictions like blood crimes, violence, etc., but also fraud is a big one, drug-related offenses, or repeated offenses. Even they're smaller, this could be also a reason for denial. Okay, so if you have, let's say, criminal records, yes, even if they're small, it will not be a straightforward case. Always go with a lawyer. Okay, so it doesn't mean that if you, for example, if you had a DUI, driving under the influence, smoking pot many years ago, etc., smaller misdemeanors, smaller offenses, they may be overlooked, but it is a case-by-case study from the officer reviewing your case. Okay. We mentioned also it's helpful to sign a declaration confirming that you don't have pending criminal charges. And of course, it needs to be apostille and sworn translated to Spanish. Okay. If you need expedite apostille services in the UK and US, go on Spainguru.es, and also my recommended sworn translations who are sworn translating documents for the DNV every single day, so they know their job. Do you need a degree? Alternatives that work. We said there's two options. Either you show a university diploma or at least 3 years of professional experience. If you show a university diploma, must be in a relevant field related to your job role, must be legalized and officially sworn translated, and degrees have to be a certain level at certain universities. Degrees must be a graduate or postgraduate level from recognized institutions and related to your current job. The option 2, at least 3 years of professional experience, must be directly related to remote work you're doing in Spain, and must be supported by official documents like employer-client letters, social security or tax reports, depending where you come from, invoices, contracts, or proof of services delivered. Okay, So now, it used to be that you didn't need official documents for proving your 3 years of professional experience. Now you need official documentation. And depending on your case, it will be one or another, okay? Different tax forms, etc. Another thing, if you're proving via experience, you need to show a detailed CV aligned with the application, and client letters confirming scope plus dates, official documents, as we said, invoices, bank proof, and clear link between past experience and current role. Can you bring your family? This is a good one, and this is one of the good things about this visa. Yes, you can immediately bring family members, okay? And also you can bring them later on after the initial application, okay? With certain requirements, let's say, but you can still do it, okay? You can include a spouse, legally registered partner, children under 18, and also over 18, and parents, but you have to prove that they are dependent, okay? Physically dependent and also financially dependent, okay? But it is possible. For example, after May 2025, the non-lucrative visa doesn't permit, let's say, children over 18. They need to apply separately, right? And in order to include a partner or spouse, you need to provide a new copy of marriage or civil partnership certificate, again, Apostilles translated, if not in Spanish, and proof in case you are applying with an unmarried couple. You need to prove that you are a stable couple or legal partner. Okay, so as stable partners, you need to prove that you are partners via showing cohabitation or proving cohabitation for at least 1 year. Having children helps, but it's not definitive. This is the cohabitation, it seems. And in order to prove this is lease agreements, joint bills, or shared bank accounts. Now, if it's your legal partner, then a legal partnership contract or certificate rather than contract is what it works. Okay. So, and to continue, for minor children, you show birth certificate, again, new, apostilles translated, and apostille by the authorities who emit it. For example, if your children were born in Turkey, you need the apostille from the Turkish authorities. You need to translate it from Turkish to Spanish, okay, etc., right? Or if they were born in California, it's the California state that apostilles it. You need to show proof of financial support and school plans is helpful. Adult children of 18 plus, but under 26, you must show full-time studies, financial dependence, and proof of living with parents. So they must still be part of the same family unit, okay? They cannot be married or living somewhere else. And if they're over 18, over 26, only allowed if they're medically and capably dependent, okay? And you need to prove all this. For adopted children, include a court ruling confirming legal guardianship or adoption. And if you're bringing your parents or in-laws, you must prove real stable financial or physical dependence, such as full support via bank transfer, medical dependency. Cases are assessed individually. So in case you're bringing your elderly, you must prepare this case also very, very well. You need to show that you are sending money to them, etc., etc. Okay, so this is also something to point out. Later application, or the dependents who are joining later on. So if family members apply later, not with the main applicant, extra documentation will be required. For self-employed applicants, you must be fully registered as autónomo before they can apply, and this can take time. Dependents can successfully apply while still in their home country, might still need a Schengen visa to enter Spain for the appointment. An important thing, if you're applying from outside as well, the dependents, the approval of the digital nomad visa, it doesn't equal activation. Dependents approved from abroad must still activate the residency via a Type D visa at a consulate before entering Spain. This is called family member of an international teleworker. So yet one more step. So yeah, applying from Spain has many, many advantages. Do you need private health insurance? Let's talk about case by case. Okay, this is a big one, right? So you don't need private health insurance if you hold a valid, excuse me for that, if you hold a valid certificate of coverage, A1 COC, with healthcare entitlement recognized in Spain. Okay, so typically the one in the USA doesn't have it. You will need a health insurance, private health insurance, compliant one, as an employee from a US company. Now, if you register as self-employed in Spain and contribute to Spanish Social Security, you don't need a private health insurance. Now, you do need a private health insurance if neither of the above applies to you. And if you're bringing family members, spouse, children as employee, they almost always need private health coverage unless you become autonomous. Now, even if you become autonomous and you bring your dependents, there's a big question that whether they the dependents, even if you apply as autonomous and then you have access to private healthcare, to public healthcare, the dependents, many people say that still it is much better to have private health insurance for the dependents as well, okay? Because we've seen rejections, etc., right? So this is something that is being said in the groups as well. Many people has asked this, and experts have said it's better to have a compliant private health insurance for the dependents, even if someone is applying as autonomous. Now, in order to be a compliant health insurance, it needs to not have co-payments, like no co-payments, zero deductibles, comprehensive coverage valid throughout Spain, and minimum 1 year validity. Okay, even if your visa is sought to be granted for 3 years, proving that you will have a private health insurance for 1 year should be enough in a consulate or within Spain. Another thing that people are thinking, even this visa is very new, it's from 2023, we're in 2026, only 3 years have passed, is that after 5 years of legal residency in Spain, you can go for the long-term residency, right? And the let's say considerations or requirements for the long-term residency, it is not automatically granted. You need to comply. You can't be outside of Spain more than 10 months in the previous 5 years and no more than 6 months at once. And you need to have 5 years of continuous residency, okay? And also, there cannot be gaps in healthcare coverage. So one of the things that may happen is that you get your DNV approved from within Spain and your residency starts the day the visa is granted, but still you haven't become autonomous and still you're not covered by the public healthcare, okay? So once you start paying Social Security, you can start doing it very fast, but it can be a small gap there that you want potentially to avoid, right? So this is another thing that you must consider. Now, if you need private health insurance, I have my recommendation, which is Carlos Blanco, who is also an immigration lawyer, who is also, as we mentioned at the beginning, CABR, which is his company, okay, who has immigration lawyers, and he's also processing digital nomad visas. But not only that, he's also exclusive agent from one of the top company in Spain, which is Apostilles, and he knows perfectly all the timings, etc., and he knows how to combine all this. He has very deep knowledge and has incredibly good reviews, and you're in very good hands if you contact with him. Now, by the way, I'm gonna reinstate the did I save it? No, I didn't save it. I wanted to give you the button to consult for 10 minutes for your eligibility for the visa, but I lost it. But anyways, it is gonna be in the video's pinned comment and description as well. Now, entry stamps, apostille, and translations. Okay, you need a passport entry stamp between parentheses. Because now there is the EES system, entry exit system, being rolled out until April 2026. And now you don't get a stamp, you get a scan of your face, your fingerprints, etc. Okay, but you need a proof of entry into Spain, basically. The important thing is that you need a proof of entry into Spain, not into the Schengen area. So if you enter Spain from outside of Schengen, you're going to get that proof. But if you fly or go to another Schengen country and then you go from that Schengen country to Spain, you will not get the proof of entry in Spain, and that for that is recommended that you get a declaración de entrada or entry declaration stamped at a police office, police station, sorry, at an airport or near the border or the train station. It's a one single document, they stamp it, and that's the best proof of entry into Spain that you can have. And you need it in order to apply for the visa. So, and the rest we have already mentioned it. And of course, application forms that you need to fill, they need to be fully completed and signed, and any errors may cause delays or rejections. Now, this is the table that I promised you. This is a very common question. What do I have to apostille? What I need to translate? And what of those translations are sworn translations? So there you have the list. You can watch it later on in the recording, okay? Then I will send you later today. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a like. Give it a like. It really helps others find this content. Now, we mentioned savings. Sometimes you are a little bit below the financial threshold. Is it allowed? Yes, it is. Maximum, let's say 450 euros. This is what experts say. It's nowhere written. And they can be more flexible if you bring multiple dependents. And what would count as savings? Bank statements with your name, fixed term deposits or investment accounts, proof of consistent ownership and access. You need to prove all that. Basically, it needs to be liquid funds, liquid. So readily accessible without penalties. And you can, and if it is not pure cash, as long as you prove that those funds are readily available for you anytime, then they should be good and considered. So we said that applying from Spain has many advantages, but also little cons, depending on the personal situations. But the pros by far outweigh the cons. First of all, if you apply from Spain, you can apply directly online. And the next minute you are in Spain. The process is much more streamlined than from a consulate, even if there are erratic decisions from UGE, the consulates. It's insane how different they can be and the timeframes they can have. No medical certificate is needed or income tax return to prove income, that many consulates ask for this. Approval with an indefinite contract can grant residence for up to 3 years instead of 1. And there is guarantee that if you get a positive administrative silence after not having a response after 20 working days, this is something that happens from Spain. And it is, therefore, there's a faster turnaround of 1 to 2 months. Okay. Now the cons. You have a strict 90-day window, observing the 90 days in 180 days rolling period from Schengen. So be careful, apply as soon as you arrive, because if you get denied for any reason, you can reapply and still get approved. Entry proof is required, as we mentioned before, and bad thing, as we mentioned, you cannot choose when your residency starts. It just starts automatically the day in which your visa is granted, and that could be a little bit problematic, let's say, because of what we mentioned before. Have asked people where they were applying from, and most of the people applied from Spain in the group of Spainguru, Digital Nomad visa, but not everyone. Of course, depends on the nationality. Filipinos, for example, they almost 100% of them apply from Philippines because they will need to get initially a Schengen visa in order to enter Spain in order to apply. But if they can, it's much better to do it from Spain. Now, the timeline, the easy timeline, if everything is perfect and straightforward, first you prepare your documents, you travel to Spain, you submit application, you wait for resolution, and you receive a residency. Okay, this would be in a perfect place, and you get your residency for 3 years. Okay. Now, let's go with a few questions that community members have asked. What if I work with individuals? What if my clients aren't companies? Well, it is okay. It is okay. It is not the best. Okay, if you have different sources of income and you're fine, if you're better to show from a company and you are over the threshold, then it's much better. But it should be okay. And there is higher risk. Okay, so there is additional scrutiny, and you will need to include invoices from client names, with client names, proof of regular payments, written confirmation from a client about the work you do. And if you have multiple smaller clients, show consistent income across several months. Avoid contracts that suggest you are doing work for Spanish-based individuals, unless clearly allowed below that 20% threshold. Okay, so yes, if clients are individuals, additional proof of stable long-term income is required. And the applications really are stronger when income is paid by registered companies. So if you're in this situation and you can, avoid it. Working for NGOs is possible as well. Contracts with NGOs or foundations are acceptable if they operate like a company. So if you can prove that they have consistent activity, legal status, financial transactions, just as with applying with a company, right? Now, we mentioned that, especially with that question, like, can I get registered as autónomo before getting my NIE? And this is what is going to happen in the 99% of cases, because there is a huge bottleneck with TIE appointments at national police stations all across Spain, and especially in the places where digital nomads love to go. Valencia, Barcelona, Málaga, Madrid, you name it, right? If you go to Soria, for example, or Teruel, maybe you won't get this problem, right? But it's not that common. Now, expect that. Yes, and Valencia is the king, like months waiting. And it doesn't mean that if you can't get your appointment for your TIE, it doesn't mean that you are in an illegal status. Okay, and everybody knows that it takes months to get, but still, it is best to solve that situation. So you should check daily. There's many tips, like early morning refresh until 2 p.m. They release new ones every 15 minutes. Join the community. There's tips on how to get the appointments in the different areas. But something that helps is being flexible within the province. It needs to be in the province where you have proof of address and potentially use a service. Okay. Now, there is something called what they call the TIE hack, or I call it the TIE hack, which is another option where you can potentially avoid having to get an empadronamiento, which is not very easy, registering at the city hall with a rental contract of usually more than 6 months. It's not that easy to obtain immediately. So it is potentially useful to know that if you get a TIE appointment via the UGE, okay, it must be via the UGE portal, okay, in Madrid or in Barcelona, in that appointment, they will not ask for an empadronamiento. So you can take a train or a car, whatever, and go to those cities and potentially get your TIE in your cities and then go back wherever you came from. So that is what makes Madrid and Barcelona easier and faster. Okay, so potentially something that you need to know. And I have a video about this. Here's the QR code. Just go and check it out. Search Spainguru TIE hack digital nomad visa on Google and it will come up. Now let's talk about taxes and social security. We're in, yes. So we mentioned that at first, if you register as autónomo, you'll pay monthly social security fees, starting at around 90 euros, potentially getting paid back via the Cuota Cero, and then they will go up according to your income. Now, what grants you paying the social security? In Spain, you would get access to Spain's public healthcare system, one of the best in the world, subsidized medicines. This is a big one. If you if you use medicines often, you will see a huge bill difference. The subsidies are very strong in Spain in terms of medicines. You will also be paying for your retirement in Spain, for disability coverage, parental leave, sickness benefits, etc. Okay, but this expense is something that you need to budget along your taxes and, of course, all the rest of your expenses. Okay, by the way, and talking about budget is very interesting. Something that I just released last week. I'm going to share my screen here. If you go here to start here, yes, you have the toolkit, okay? And you have one of the things that you can get is the moving budget tool. I'm very proud of this one. So it will tell you how much money you need to account for your year in Spain, okay? So first, our monthly costs, okay, based in the cost provided by numbeo.com, one-off cost for your moving to Spain, okay, and depending how many you are, and then it will calculate you the total that you need for the whole year. So definitely, it's a free tool, okay, and you can use it, play around with it, and of course, if you give me feedback about it, that would be awesome. Of course, this is not scientific; it's just for inspiration, but based in real cost of living in the different cities, etc. But there are big variations even in the same city, so you need to take it, of course, with a pinch of salt. Now, let's go back to the presentation. Taxes overview. We're talking about here income tax. This is the normal ordinary income tax. That has progressive tax brackets in Spain, starting at 19% all the way up to 47%, depending on the region. There's a regional part, there's a national part. And something that people think, as you can see, the fifth bracket goes from 60,000 euros to 300K, and that's 45% tax rate. And people say like, whoa, if I make something, if I make 61,000 euros, I will pay 45% income tax. No, that's not the way it works, right? So in order to do round numbers for illustrative purposes, if you make 100K, that would fall also in the same tax bracket. But the way it works is that you will be paying 19% for the first 12,450 euros that you make taxable income. Then you will pay 24% for the up to 20,000 euros, 200, etc. So therefore, you will pay an average or median of those progressive tax brackets, making the effective tax rate for 100K 36% and not 45%, right? So yes, it is high, but it's not as bad as many people think. So we need to demystify that. We mentioned that autonomous not only have to file taxes on a yearly basis or annual basis. I'm autonomous as well, and I file taxes on a quarterly basis. And the way it works is that you would pay income tax in advance for your quarterly invoiced amount, and then when the annual tax comes, whatever you have not paid, so you pay, for example, 20% in advance, but of course your effective tax rate will be over that if you're a digital nomad, and you have to pay more. So therefore, during the annual tax filing, you will get the final invoice, and then you pay it later on. You can do it into two tranches of 60% and 40%. And June 30th is the deadline for the income tax filing in Spain, right? This is a little coming to Americans, okay? You know, if you're an American passport holder, you still need to file taxes in the US, regardless where you're a Spanish tax resident, if you're a Spanish tax resident or not, and you need to file them by April 15th. So many people would pay their taxes in Spain. They get an automatic extension until June 15th. They pay their taxes in Spain, and thanks to the double taxation agreement between Spain and USA, you can credit whatever you paid taxes for in Spain towards your payment of taxes in the US, making it that you have to not just file and not have to pay taxes in the US in most cases. Okay, I'm summarizing this and making it much easier than it really is, but this is how many people do. And if you want to know more about taxes, you can join my webinar that I hold every single month. And again, it's free, and you can get a recording just like you will for this one as well. Now let's talk about the visa renewal. Now, if you're applying, as we said, from outside of Spain, maximum 1 year of residency will be granted, okay? Now, what happens if you get 1 year, right? Converting that 1 year DNV obtained at the consulate into a 3-year permit is no longer guaranteed. Applying directly from Spain is now the safer pathway to obtain up to 3 years. Yes. And then if you get 3 years, you would renew for 2 more years. Otherwise, after 1 year, you need to renew for 2 more years and 2 more years, right? And we said that you officially, if you arrive with a granted visa, or officially you have 30 days to get your TA card, nobody can because of the bottleneck of appointments. But once you obtain the TA card, you will formally see, okay, you will see it before, but once you get your TA card, it is formally established in an official document when your residency has started, right? So in the TA card, it says start date, this date. If you got your visa from Spain, it should coincide with the date in which you got your visa, right? You add 365 days, yes, and will be 1 year, right? If you got your residency permit for 3 years, it should be 365 times 3, right? Regardless of what the time period is, you can start your renewal 2 months before the permit or residency expires, okay? And recommendation is don't wait until the last minute because of the same reason as before. If you get denied, if you get any friction, then you can reapply and you still have legal days in Spain, right? And after 5 years, you could potentially go for the long-term residency with the requirements that I told you before. Now, if you're lucky enough to hold a passport from any of those countries in red, Ibero-American countries, Philippines, Portugal, Andorra, Guinea Equatorial, there is an agreement between Spain and these countries that after only 2 years of legal residency in Spain, and of course the digital nomad visa counts as legal residency. For example, student visa doesn't count, but NLV, DNV, all those residencies count for the residency requirement. And after only 2 years of legal residency, you can be eligible for applying for Spanish passport, right? Big question there. How long do I have to be in Spain before applying for the Spanish passport? Maximum 3 months outside of Spain in the previous years, in the previous 2 years in this case, right? And there is no law that says this. It is a jurisprudence. It is a judge who said this, right? It is interpretation of the rule. So 90 days is not absolutely scientific, but 91 days is fine, but 92 is already like red line, okay? This is important as well, right? Otherwise, normally the residency requirement for eligibility for Spanish citizenship is 10 years, right? If you marry a Spaniard and you register your marriage in Spain after 1 year of residency in Spain, which is very easy to obtain if you're married to a Spaniard, after 1 year, you can apply for Spanish citizenship. That's another pathway. Right? And there are different ways to obtain the citizenship, but these are probably the most common. What's different when you renew your visa? You must still meet all income, work, and legal requirements. And now, after what we said about UGE, they will review, your case. They will look at if you are filing taxes in Spain, okay, like Modelo 100, which is income tax, June 30th, proof of fiscal residency in Spain, Spanish bank statements, evidence of real activity, social security compliance. And yes, this means that they will verify whether you're paying taxes, you're truly a resident in Spain, you comply post-approval. Okay, so renewal is no longer a formality. Don't think that is automatic. It is almost like applying again. But now they will truly check whether you have lived in Spain with all that entails. Common renewal issues: income drops below required level, freelancers fail to show consistent activity, delays with paperwork or expired documents, new apostille requirements. So people applied when the apostilles were needed, and now they come back thinking that they don't need it. But yeah, it all is getting updated. And we mentioned gaps in health coverage. Another things to consider, as we said, gaps for the 5 years continuous residency, for long-term residency later, gaps in residency permit, in health coverage, or missing the minimum stay requirements. And here are some tips for smooth renewal. Keep your documents organized from day one, income statements, invoices, client letters. Like, start preparing for your renewal. Okay, it's almost part of your job if you want to stay with this visa. Okay, and social security payment records, etc. Monitor your income to ensure you meet the threshold every month. Update your padrón or municipal registration if you move. Set reminders to begin the renewal process at least 60 days before expiration. Gather the documents 4 to 3 months before expiration, and get a new background check from Spain, in this case, once you are living in Spain, with no pending legal issues. We mentioned the new quality control unit from UGE. They will verify Spanish social security registration when you did it, proper autonomous setup when you did it, that the COC or A1 is valid. What we said may expire before you get that your visa expires. So it has to be valid when you renew. And that income remains above threshold, and the administrative silence cases were legitimate. So yeah. So in this case, in which the COC expires, what do you do, right? So typically maximum 2 years, but when it expires, you have 3 options. You can apply for a COC renewal in your home country, which is almost ever granted, never. Switch to Autónomo and register with Spanish Social Security. Do it before the residency ends. Convince employer to register in Spanish Social Security, okay, which almost never happens. Leave Spain temporarily, which may reset the residency clock for later application of long-term residency. Consider immigration pathways such as arraigo after 2 years, but you need to be irregular when you apply, and it sets the clock to 0. Non-lucrative residency, so switching to a non-lucrative residency if you have enough savings or passive income of minimum 28,800 euros per main applicant. Work permit, okay, so that is another one. You go to work to a Spanish company, or you have your own project. That could also potentially be a viable pathway. And consider that UGE renewal rejections have been based on expired A1 coverage, and Spain expects continuity, and you need to have a plan ready before yours expires. So this is also another reason why I always suggest to at least consult 1 hour or 2 hours with expert immigration lawyers, because they will look over the trees, they will look at your long-term goals in Spain, and they will give you options, right? And if your goal is to stay in Spain for the long term, make sure you don't make costly mistakes, and you lay out as the right strategy. So and let's say foresee the different pathways that you need to go when your residency ends, and potentially you don't renew it, but you go on another residency pathway. So this is an important thing that, let's say, lawyers who understand how things work provide much more value than a visa agency that just applies for the visa that you tell them, but they don't really tell you what to do in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, etc. Right? If that is your plan, if you're coming here for a year in Spain or 2 or the 3 years, and then you want to go back to your country, of course, that doesn't make too much sense to spend money in that. But if you're planning to stay for the long term, it is worth every penny. That's what people say. And not only from the legal perspective, but the tax perspective is also extremely important. So at the very least, consult with an immigration lawyer and a tax advisor who can also make sure that your objectives are aligned in terms of taxation and in terms of immigration, right? And yes, as I said, you can use my free tools on Spainguru.es. Everything on Spainguru is free. As of today, everything. But of course, if you engage with any of my recommended partners that have been recommending 99% of them for more than 2 years, 3 years, etc., with good reviews, you're in good hands, and they know about this visa. Okay, so that's important. And also now, as we said, CABR, they've been processing this visa since the beginning. They give you one free consultation of 10 minutes just to check the eligibility, just to make sure that it could be viable for you. In 10 minutes, you can talk many things, and it's free. Okay, and you can just go for it right now. Okay, now I'm gonna copy actually the link in the chat box, because I had that button that you could click and I lost it, and I feel very bad about it. So if you give me just 1 second, I will just go there and click the Calendly link so you can book right there right now. Now let's continue with we're finishing the presentation. As I said, here are my vetted partners. Just go to Spainguru services and you will find them. And you can always send me an email to hello@spainguru.es. I always answer my emails sooner or later, and sometimes I come with an answer, sometimes I don't have it, and at least I point you in the right directions. I give you free resources. I give you vetted partners who can help you. The content of this webinar is for information purposes only and is not legal advice. Requirements listed here are not official. Please always check your specific consulate requirements or UGE requirements, etc., etc. Now let's go with the Q&A session. Okay, I see there are a few questions there. And remember, I'm going to send you the recording later on. And one thing that, if you can leave a review on Trustpilot, if you think that the information that I'm sharing with you today or other times, if you use Spainguru before, and you want to have very good vibes with me, then you can always leave a review on Trustpilot. It really helps me, makes me really happy, and of course, it helps others find this content. So yeah, you will be doing a good action of the day, as we say in Spanish. Now let's go with the first question. What is the sorry, that was actually the last question. But yeah, what is the final window of time you suggest applying that won't conflict with holidays, UGE being understaffed? Is early July cutting it too close? When do they resume a normal pace? This is not scientific. This is not scientific. Generally, it is around those days, like August and after the second half of December. Those would be the moments in which they are understaffed, because imagine people just take their holidays around that time, but officially they have to still take applications. Yeah, but it could be that 1 year there's no problems. Another year there are less people than other years. That could also happen. What happens with the DNV after 5 years after you apply for long-term residency? Well, you are just changing residency. So your DNV expires. Let's say your teleworkers residency expires, and now if you're approved for long-term residency, as I said, it's not automatic. You need to comply with the requirements. Then your status, your residency status, changes to long-term residency, and it is much better than the digital nomad visa or the teleworkers visa. Much better. It is much easier. You don't have to be so long in Spain to keep it. Actually, you keep it. Okay, even if you're longer outside of Spain, you keep it. I don't want to get too long, but it is much better. The financial threshold, if there's no financial threshold if you're working, if you don't want to work, it's only 7,200 euros. Like, long-term residency is much better than any other type of initial residency that you can think. And of course, you have work permit. Yes, they can work for Spanish companies. It is almost like the same rights as an Spaniard, almost. I use an online bank account. How would I get stamped or signed version? This is a common question. So, in many cases, I mean, if it's in the requirement to get a stamped or signed version, what lawyers would do is like they will go to the notary, and in the notary you will get, if you and you can't get a stamped version or signed version, you will go to the notary, and in the notary you would access the bank account. They will print it out. They will sign it. The notary will sign it as true, and that would give, let's say, a layer of being official. This is what some lawyers say. Is one able to work remotely as W2 employee for two separate US companies while abroad, or would one need to switch to 1099 in order to keep both jobs under the DNB? That's a good question. Never heard that question before. I don't know. I wouldn't see any problem if you're an employee for one company, three companies. I mean, if you make the case that for one company you are over the financial threshold and you have all the paperwork required to that company, that would be it. That's my opinion. But as I said, I'm not an immigration lawyer. I am, let's say, I have every day I spend long time reading comments and questions and answers. I'm in contact with lawyers who tell me things and everything, but I'm not an immigration lawyer, so it is I wouldn't be able to answer you that question, and I'm not sure. I think that would be the answer. Yes, like I wouldn't see a problem. It's with one job you can apply, then it's fine. It doesn't matter. You have more jobs. Do I need to be physically present in Spain to apply at the UGF or the DMB? Yes. I mean, you need to have an entry into Spain. Or if I work with an immigration lawyer in Spain, are they able to submit my paperwork application with me? Yes, they can submit it for you, but you need the entry in Spain, let's say. Yes, you need to prove the entry in Spain. So, I mean, indirectly, you need to be in Spain. You know what I mean? So, you need the entry in Spain. You need to prove it. That you are within the 90 days and 190 days period. The apostille documents, they should be valid within a 6-month period, right? So, not for this visa, yes, it normally is 6 months unless stated otherwise. Okay, this is what I heard. But this should be listed in the requirements. They should tell you like with the validity of no more than 6 months. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, you need to read the official requirements. Am I able to apply for the NIE at the Spanish consulate in Los Angeles and then still apply in Spain for the DNB? I've heard it can be tricky obtaining a NIE at the police stations. Well, first of all, you don't obtain a NIE when you are in Spain. As I mentioned in the presentation, the NIE is just a number. So if you apply for the DMV in Spain, you get the NIE automatically with the visa grant. Okay, so it's a step that you save. Now, if you're applying from a consulate abroad, you need to get the NIE. You pay 10 euros, but you need to get an appointment, blah, blah, blah. You spend time. There's a lot of work for other reasons in the consulate, so it's better to avoid it if you can, right? But I guess that here you are referring to the TIE card. The TIE card is what you get from a national police station or from an office in Spain, right? So yes, that's important to mention. I have an article here, which is NIE, TIE, and residency differences. Let me search for it, right? So, sorry, this is a basic thing that we tend to confuse NIE, TIE, etc. So I have an article about this and a video, and explains exactly what it is, right? The differences, so that you don't confuse things, and you are more confident about this process. Now let's go with. I'm an employee in the UK. My work and payroll is from the UK entity, but my company has a subsidiary in Spain, which I am not related at all. Will I have any issues? Also, can I go just apply in Spain and then go back to the UK? Meanwhile, they review my application, and once hopefully it's approved, I go back. Of course, I will have Schengen days available to do this. So for the first thing, I don't know. Check with a lawyer. And for the second thing, as far as I understand, you don't need to stay in Spain. Okay. After you have applied, then you can leave Spain if you want, as far as I understand. Okay, I'm not an immigration lawyer. This is not legal advice. I know citizenship is not guaranteed, but how difficult is it to become a citizen after 10 years if you follow all the rules? If you follow all the rules, you'll get the citizenship. right? So if you don't follow them, you won't be eligible. So that's it. We made it till the end. No more questions. I really appreciate that you guys made the time to join today. You'll receive a recording later on. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. And if you have any question, just comment below. If you want to leave a review on Trustpilot, you're really going to help me. And I'm going to send very good vibes to you that will make your visa granted. And of course, you're going to help others find my content online. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye bye.